Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. We're doing a special segment today. Recently, a nice young couple at church asked me a question. They said, "So, we've been playing this little game, Dice of Catan, and we're wondering if you had any other suggestions." Now, it seemed like they were asking something very innocuous, but I knew what they were really asking. What they were really asking is, "Good Father, please traverse the world and seek it out, and with all your knowledge find all the wisdom of the world and combine it into one realm wherein all of the fun games for couples that are generally chill but not necessarily completely non-competitive lie. And then compile that list, formulate it, curate it, and then do a video on it and post it on your website." That's what I know they were asking me to do for YouTube. So, you know what? Who am I not to put full effort into this regard? Because if anyone asks me for suggestions for board games, far be it from me not to go overboard. So we are going to do what is basically we're going to talk about top relaxing games for couples, mostly chill gaming. The particular group in question, or the target audience for this, is not going to be my usual fare. In fact, many of these games are ones that I've probably moved on. They're in a situation where they're both working, they work hard, they get home. Usually they want to watch a show or do something relatively chill in that regard. But in this case, they sometimes are like, well, let's play a game. Maybe you don't need to just watch a show. And so, unfortunately, that's not something I am graced with the blessing of being able to do anymore, but others still do, and so I can share my knowledge, and maybe we can get some great comments and get your shared knowledge too on something that might fit the bill for this. So let's go over the criteria first as far as, let's get my ugly face up on the screen a little higher so you can see these cool people instead. But let's go over the groundwork for why this list was formed. First off, 15 to 30 minutes max, in the same way you'd watch, say, a serial, sitcom or something. Nothing that's gonna take a long time. Modest to no confrontation, not necessarily lacking in competitiveness, but not necessarily a "I'm going to attack you, you attack me" fist fight sort of thing. Pleasant themes, not against nothing battle-ish or such per se, but nature, agriculture, economy, etc. The games that I'm going to recommend are going to be mentally interesting, but not mentally taxing, which is also important, because sometimes you just want to stand down if you're working at a brisk job or dealing with lots of people that aren't sanguine. And easy rules to learn and remember, so that you don't have to refamiliarize yourself with it if it takes a couple weeks to get back to playing again. And also, the list here is either exclusively two-player, or there are games that are just as good with two-player as they are with higher or lower player counts. And without further ado, let's get into the list. First off, I would say that that I should switch to the screen so that you can see the game and not me. First off, we have Fairy Tale Inn. Fairy Tale Inn is an exciting game that I like, that takes Connect 4 concepts and actually makes a solid game out of them. With it, you can play in 15 minutes or so. The idea is you're placing, in the same way that Connect 4 would have you placing tiles down in a grid. You do this here, except the trick is you have special abilities based on where you place them. There's a game that came out later from the game designer that's going to be on this list as well that fits it into a pirate theme, but in this case you have fairy tales, and where you stack them, things around them will give them points and whatever. Very simple, very fun, easy to just get in and roll. Next, we have My City Roll and Write. If you're interested in distilling down I'm going to build a city campaign, you can play all the campaign, which is just basically a few missions on and on, or you can play a single scenario of it, but it's simple, orthogonal, polygon, write in your shapes, build a city. It starts off real simple, just build it in like Tetris. Over time it will gradually introduce other concepts that make it so your city has to be more nuanced, and so check that one out if you wish. Next, we have Catan the Dice Game. This is one that I believe this group is already familiar with, but I'm not going to lie to you, I don't think I ever did like Catan. I appreciated what Catan did to bring people into the gaming situation that we are now, which is basically heavenly. But I always found Catan to be relatively slow and not particularly interesting, but but I also saw the potential that it had for bringing people into better gaming. Catan Dice Game, on the other hand, distills a lot of that down into a very manageable game of simple economy, building, doing, and advancing. And in that regard, you could play that easily without a lot of the large setup. I also had one of the worst experiences in my life playing at some local church playing Catan, and it was abysmal. So that might also mark it against me. That said, I love the universe. If you haven't read the books, I really find that the books are top-notch. Not just the older ones, but the brand new ones being introduced. In fact, the second book in the trilogy of Catan is available as of this month. So anyway, check it out. Next, we have Harmonies. Harmonies seems like a game. It's simple and it's not. You can be as breezy and delightful with it as you want, or you can take it and get real thinky about it. In Harmonies, you are building up a forest or a river or you're going to have an option to take a certain number of little stacks of cubes, and you're going to build trees or buildings or rivers or lakes, and you're going to have beautiful patterns that you're going to try to match. It's all about just sweet pattern matching. There are other games, Calico, based on cats, which I found constricting, and Cascadia, which is a beautiful Pacific Northwest themed game as well. Harmonies has grown to eclipse those for me, just on the simple nature of its just pleasing flow, building. But again, it can get tricky. If you want to really get a high score, you can think deeply, but you don't have to. Next, we have Tag Team. Now, this is one that does have a little bit more confrontation, and by a little bit more, I mean a lot more. But in this game, this epic game, you can play this in 15 minutes, but you do feel like you're doing a back and forth. Like back and forth tag team fight. It looks more complicated when you open it up because every single character is different, and because they're different, because you have two of them at a time, you would think that it might be overloading, but it's not. You start with 2 cards in your deck. Every round, you add another card and another card, but you don't just randomly pick. You decide where they go in the flow, and as you're battling back and forth, it's more guessing what your opponent's trying to do. It's better than Jab the boxing game for being kind of a boxing game, but recommend it, again, if you're just like, I'm a little friskier than non-confrontational today. Let's do it. Tag Team might be interesting to you. Next, we have Toy Battle. Sounds silly, sounds funny. It's not. It is a game, imagine Stratego but fun, where, and without the hidden information. In Toy Battle, you are on a landscape of different toy scenarios or different like fantasy, fable-ish themed battlefields, and you have a set of units. All the units never change their composition, so you don't get overwhelmed. They're like, I have this unit. This unit lets me go all the way over on the map to some other place. Everything else makes you have to go in a row heading towards the enemy. You've got units that are just strong. You've got units that just happen to do a little extra or get to let you take another unit with them. But it is so pleasing. The thing that changes are the maps underneath have their own special abilities. So where you go on these little maps will determine extra things you can do. It seems like a simple premise. I blew it off and laughed it off until I played it, and then my friend and I played 6 games in a row, and it was about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But it's a joyous little game. Yes, there's confrontation, but you feel like you earned it or you didn't, and it's toys. There's a snake in my boot. Come on, it's toys. Anyway, Forest Shuffle is a relatively new entry that a friend of mine picked up, and since he had it and I didn't, naturally I had to have it too. Forest Shuffle is a wonderful game of building. You build trees, and then certain creatures and fauna and flora come around, and you find the right match for those trees that you're laying down to build out your nice little forest. And when you're done building out the nice little forest, then you score points. Pretty simple, pretty easy. This one might go a little past the 30-minute mark, although I never felt like that. So it never felt like it was taking too long or dragging on anyway. So that's another recommendation I have. Let's get to the next one. Draft and Write Records blew onto the stage. I have played 20 games of this in the last month. It is, let me tell you, like for 20 years I did not like roll and writes. After Yahtzee, I'm like, I don't need a pencil anymore. I want game components, I want that. Draft and Write Records may have opened the floodgates on this because I have reinvigorated myself to enjoying it. Draft and Write Records really hits the sweet spot of getting lots and lots of fun little micro rewards as you're building up your band, traveling, all that stuff. Everything looks convoluted until you start playing it, and then it flows, and it flows nicely. So if you like sort of that, hey, let's make a rock and roll band, but not really, but without having rock band equipment anymore, since everyone sold it off and it's probably all in landfills around your local neighborhood, then yeah, give this one a shot. Next we have Lost Cities. I never have liked Lost Cities because of its simplicity, and that's a snottiness on my part, not a diss on the game. The game is great to introduce to couples. It's very simple to play. The premise will make you think, why aren't there other games like this on mainstream? Lost Cities is all about going on expeditions, and the thing is you have to play your cards in a given order, and you can have gaps, but you can never play a card like that goes below the last number you played on an expedition. It's simple, it's easy, 15-20 minutes and you've played it. But if you want to check out and just play, this is a game, it's been around for decades, and yet it still holds true just for its simplicity of play and lighthearted demeanor. Like, Indiana Jones, if he fell asleep and took a nap, Lost Cities is the game. Captain Flip. This is a game Fairy Tale Inn had its own little unique sort of idea, again, Connect 4. Captain Flip does something a little different in the same sort of vein, but it has nothing to do with being a pirate, which is why I never gave it much stock, because I love pirate games, but I don't like games that say, hey, we have a pirate game, but there's nothing about piracy or traveling or pillaging or plundering or shooting or sailing or stuff. In this game, all you're doing is building a crew for your ship, but it's such a delight. You have a token in a character. That character might be, it's a parrot, or it's a character that if you have 3 of them in the game, like the gunners, you lose at the end of the game because you can't have too many gunners spoils the soup or something. But you've got deck swabbers. You're like, okay, you get coins for everything in a row or a column. Seems super boring, except for the fact that if you have a tile and you're like, I don't know that I want this tile, you can take a risk and flip that tile. No idea what's on the back. Maybe it's even worse, maybe it's better. But just that alone is enough to make it sound as a game to recommend at 2 players, and easy to get into, easy to play, and you pretty much will have a smile on your face at the end. So Captain Flip. Splendor Duel was a game that my wife and I played a lot of towards the end. Splendor was my wife's favorite game. Hundreds of games. She played hundreds more games of it than I did. One, it was on they had it for a short time. They had it on her iPhone, and the other times that she just loved Splendor. It was such a delightful zen pace. Didn't need to be fancy. Splendor Duel distills that to a 2-player game. It adds a little more to it so that it's more game than just flow, but at the same time, it's really well done. You could play this game over and over and feel satisfied. So Splendor Duel. Next, we have Caper Europe. Imagine you're not fighting against your opponent, but you're trying to mess with your opponent, and your opponent mess with you as you try to steal grand things from Europe. You're basically thieves, and you're going to these different locations trying to steal things. At first, the first game or two are probably like a little bit disorienting, but after that it flows, and there's always something a little bit new, and the contraptions feel so 70s, 80s, 007-ish. It's just a delightful presentation and a delightful quick game to play with your partner. Next, we have Castles of Burgundy dice game. Now, I'm not a fan of the Settlers dice game. I think it's pretty limited in that regard, but it matches the realm. Castles of Burgundy dice game is, even when I didn't like Roll and Rights very much, this one actually resonated with me because it gave the whole feel of the full game, which you can get for $30, or if you get the Super Grand Edition, only $200. You can get this game. This really, really, really takes it. Almost everything you have in the game is represented in this dice game in a way that resonates so well. You will feel like you're filling out your duchy, and you're smoothly, your pastures, you've got your merchants, you've got your cities, you've got your castles, and they all fill in nicely. You play them solo. Actually, it has a great solo mode, but 2-player, fantastic and well designed. One of my favorites, even when I didn't like it. So, like Roll and Rights. So, Castles of Burgundy, dice game. Next, we have Dominion. Now, Dominion is more on the complicated scale if you're just into simple stuff. My wife and I, again, played hundreds of games of this back in 2008 to 2012. It was one of the few games we'd actually track wins and losses for, but if you just get the base game and play the base game, you're fine. You don't need the other 14 expansion packs. I have them, and I honestly feel like at a certain point I stopped buying them to play and just bought them to procure. And I don't feel like I feel like I would still just go back and play the base game and just have a great time. Once you know the cards in the base game, you can bang out a game of this in 15 minutes with your spouse. And so Dominion, I recommend it. Still holds its own. Again, the first game or two, I wouldn't say it'd be super chill, but it gets chill. My wife and I could play a game and just literally just have a conversation. And I'm sure that's not really what you want. If you have all the expansions, you probably are wanting a little more than that, but base game is fine. Next, The Hobbit, There and Back Again, is new. It's only been a couple weeks that it's been out, and yet it captivates well. It plays well with 2 players. It plays awful with 1. But 2 players, 3 players, 4 players, very nice. 8 different missions and scenarios, so you could buy it, you could play it, you could gift it, do whatever. It's a roll and write with you get your little felt tip pens and whatever. But it's a nice spatial thing where you are taking and you've got little maps and little every mission that you go on has a different rule set, and it starts super simple and then it grows and gets more complicated as you follow the Hobbit as he makes his journey there and back again. Really nice, really excellent components, and a pretty decent price point. So Castle Combo is a game of, imagine tic-tac-toe but fun. In Castle Combo, you've got a 2 rows of cards, and these cards all have different abilities, and each one of them says, I'm worth this many points if I'm next to this and that, or at the end of the game, I'm going to give my owner 3 points for every one of these cards. It's super simple to start with, and as you build out your 3x3 grid, you're going to groan, and you're like, oh, that card would have been cool 2 turns ago. But you're building it side by side. Whoever has the most points at the end wins. You can do a little bit of messing with your opponent, but not bad. A game has come out since called Flip Tunes that simulates this really well. I honestly still like Castle Combo better, despite the fact that Flip Tunes is so much wacky comedy fun. But I do feel like Castle Combo kind of does better at it, and I could play this game a lot. So Castle Combo, great with 2. Next we have Duck and Cover, and Duck and Cover is great with a lot of group. You can play with a lot of people, but playing 2 is fine. Duck and Cover is so simple. You lay out a grid of cards, and then you've got a set of cards that you flip over that have numbers. Like your grid of cards has 1 through 12. You have a set of central cards, and as you flip it over, it's 4. Okay, well, you can do one of 2 things with the thing. You can duck, which means you can move that card somewhere else adjacent to something else. Maybe it'll be valuable later. Or you can cover. You can cover another number with that number, and the idea is to compile all your cards into the smallest amount of piles possible with numbers such that you score the least amount of points. It's one of those, whoever has the most points loses. It's golfish. Duck and Cover, crazy fun, simple. Next is Cascadia. While I love Harmonies, Cascadia still holds a place. This also includes the roll and writes. There are 2 roll and writes out that have very thematic representations of the flora and fauna in the Pacific Northwest. And in Cascadia, you are just building out part of the wilderness. You'll have objectives for, hey, if you have this kind of terrain, or you have this many animals that you've placed in this row or this column, you're going to get points for it. The artwork is very typical of the artist Beth Sobel. Very, very beautiful. Just beautiful. It makes me want to go out and go for a walk, except for the fact that it's cold. Otherwise, that's a game that I recommend in all of its incarnations to folks. Next we have Welcome to the Moon. Did not like, again, not liking roll and writes. I never spent much time with this, but lately I've been playing it a lot more. There's Welcome to the Neighborhood, Welcome to Las Vegas, Welcome to the Moon, even though it's not delightfully natural and pleasant. Welcome to the Moon is probably the more mature of the games that I've embraced. And again, it's actually a great solo, great 2, great 3, great 4. But you will find a nice pace. Games do not take that long. You get a card combination, you fill out your sheet, you're trying to get the best points. Every single mission is very different. You will not feel a sense of sameness, like, oh, this is the same kind of thing, but now we've changed it from the moons of Uranus to the submoons of Uranus's backside. Whatever. But instead, you get a nice mix of variety in the mission. So, Welcome to the Moon. Guild of Merchant Explorers. This is one. This is not a roll and write. This is a roll and place. In this regard, you have a map, and on that map, you're going to start off. Everybody gets the same map. There's 4 different combos, I think. You get the same map, and you start off in the center. And as cards are revealed, they tell you you can make this move or that move on this type of land or that type of land, and you're just spreading out. You're spreading out to explore. As you explore, you'll be able to build buildings so that in subsequent times when you want to, because over 4 rounds, once you finish a round, all of your cubes go away, but your buildings stay. So then the next time, well, you can spread out a little farther and a little farther. You have personal goals, you have group goals, and it flows well. 2 players can play it. Again, this is probably this might push past the 30-minute mark until you get familiar with it, but another delightful chance to show what's going on. Happy Mochi. This is my granddaughter's favorite game right now, and it's super simple but super fun. If you liked Uno or you liked Llama or at all, you will probably enjoy this. The whole point of Happy Mochi is to be happy, and you have a set of cards, and if you ever played Bonanza in the past, you cannot change the order of those cards. And so that's where it gets tricky. And the idea, like Uno, is to get rid of all your cards. In the front, in the middle, there's going to be 2 cards, and they're going to have a number, say 50. Well, you can play any 2 cards next to each other that are more than 50. There's also another card that says you're going higher or lower. So if it's higher, then it's like, oh, it's 50. Well, I've got a 6 and a 7. I've got a 5 and a 4. Okay, and you can play cards, and you play them in sets of 2. There's a few little wild card elements. There's a few things to do, but the idea is you're just trying to shed your cards until you get none. And then when you're down to the low, you're like, Happy Mochi, delightful, pleasant, super inexpensive. Enjoy. Next we have Dorf Romantik. This is one I'm recommending. Again, this is going to bump against the 30-minute mark, but let me explain why. Dorf Romantik, it comes from a computer game. I played the computer game and enjoyed it immensely for about 30 minutes, and I'm like, okay, it just keeps doing this, so if someone wants a Zen experience, just keeps doing it. I, unfortunately, am like, okay, I've had my fun. Dorf Romantik, the board game, I like much better than the actual video game, even though I like the video game. In Dorf Romantik, all you're doing, you're building a countryside. And everyone plays together. You can play it with 2, 1, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. You start off really simple. You're going to make pastures. You're going to make forests. You're going to put cities in a row. And there are goals that come out. As you're placing tiles, some of the tiles are gold tiles. They're like, you got to close this meadow. And if there's 5 tiles, the number 5 there, if it's 5 tiles that close it, you've completed an objective. Ah! But it gets trickier. When you're done, you check off objectives. If you complete some objectives, you may unlock the ability to open more parts of the game, and suddenly we won't just have meadows and forests. You'll have trains and railroads and tracks. You'll be dealing with rivers and all sorts of buildings and things, and it grows and grows. So even if you just played the first scenario and just tried to continually beat your score, it would be enough. But it adds even more value to your playing experience in that, well, we had fun. So over the course of a few weeks, you'd be like, okay, let's play that again. Let's see if we can get farther. And if you didn't reach your goals through a game, you just play it again. And eventually you'll get enough points. So very delightful. Really, really surprised me. So, and then we have Chuhon. Chuhon is another relatively new game from Tom Lehman, who's done some very in-depth games that probably wouldn't be listed as casual. Res Arcana, Race for the Galaxy, tons of stuff. Chuhon is a card shedding game, and this is one similar to a trick-taking game where you're like, everyone plays and goes around, and that you're like, I need to get rid of all of my cards, and I need to do them in lump sums. Chuhon pits you against your opponent as you go back and forth. You're not going to attack, like, I hit you, I hit you with magic missile for 12 points of damage. Now go do the dishes. No, it's just, you shed time. It's samurai kind of feel, but it's still delightful, can be played relatively short period of time, and you feel satisfied when you're going back and forth going, okay, I got you, you got me. There's enough twists in this game to feel good about your victories or to feel okay with your defeats. So then we have Aspens, brand new game, just started getting fulfilled lately. Aspens is probably the only abstract game that I enjoy. I'm not a big fan of abstract games like Go. I'm okay with Go. I get it. I value it. Checkers and chess, all that stuff. But Aspens is a game about trees, and there have been some. Photosynthesis, which was a nasty game. I mean, you want Attack of the Killer Trees? Photosynthesis was, it looked so pleasant, and then it basically went for the jugular whenever you play. Aspens is you and your opponent. You have one kind of trees, your opponent has the other, and as cards are revealed, you place trees and you build up little forests, and they spread out, and as they spread out, they have to spread out towards a certain direction in a certain way, and you just politely build. It's beautiful production values. The art you see on the box is wonderful, just wonderful. And so if you want a chance for that, again, not bad. There is an additional expansion, and several expansions, one of which makes it 4 players, but I honestly would be fine, just 2-player. And finally, the game of all games. As someone who has more memories locked up in this game and has experienced such sadness as the people that I've played cribbage with have gone on to be with the Lord, I don't play it as much as I used to just because of that, just to honor the memory. But at the same time, there's no theme to this. It's just cribbage, and I have tens of thousands of games of cribbage over my life, and it just continues to be a game of soothingness. And you can always play a game of cribbage. You just always can. Never going to go out of style. So that's it. That's what I have for the list of games that you might like as couples or experience to when you just want to chill, you don't need something complex. Again, a lot of games that I would recommend for 2 players would be for people who are like, I'm into gaming. I'm going to get home and I'm going to game. This is not that list. I may do a list like that. What are the top nasty games? I think I even have some notes down for that, where it's like, what are the top games for take that? Because some people are into that. But if you're like, you're home, you're exhausted, you spent all day, you want to chill, there really is nothing on streaming platforms that it's interesting, and you just want to have a fun little game you can play in 20-30 minutes before hitting the hay, this is the list for you. And just to explain, if you are interested, I'm going to leave this up here for a second so you can pause a minute, but this is the list of games ordered in such a way as to kind of give you value. I did check to make sure that almost all of these were at least in some form available. Some of them are readily available and some of them less so available. But either way, many of those are at least within realm of getting. So I hope this list was valuable to folks. And again, I always what did I miss? I know there's a lot of people out there, and there's probably some like, hey, me and my wife always play this, or me and my husband, we love to play this. So bring me some more ideas. Let me know what I missed so I too can make that pocketbook go lower and lower. So, all right, thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.